going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go. Today is a wonderful day to have another wonderful guest. And this one came because due to Miss Diane Sismore, who has been just a wonderful supporter of mine. She came onto this show not too about a month, 2 months ago. But I have a wonderful guest here who is a producer and he is a filmmaker. He has recorded over 24 short films. He's been involved with docuseries. He's been involved with features. He's been involved with a plethora of films in the creative space. But I will waste no more time and let's hop right into it. So without further ado, I'll present to you Mr. Tyler Reid. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for so much for having me on.
Yes, sir. No worries. And thank you as well for coming on. I'm glad to hear. I know we were speaking a little bit before the recording about our family, and I'm glad to know that your family is in a much better position now.
Yeah, exactly. Just recently, right before this recording, they've been a little sick, and everyone was a little. We were a little nervous about our youngest son, but everything's doing good. And as everyone knows, family is the most important. So we're happy that
Mhm.
everything is back to normal. Everyone's chugging along happily.
For sure. No, I'm with you on that. Like the family for me is like what fuels my purpose to be able to do even this show, just being able to fully do things that not only that they can look to as some sort of motivation, but also to feel more inspired, And I think for me, when it
Exactly.
comes, yeah, like when it comes to family, I don't even really know how to explain it other than it's just the most important aspect of my life, and it sounds like it's the same with you as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, both my wife and I are in the creative field. She's a visual effects supervisor, and I work on the sort of the producing, other creative side.
Yeah,
And no matter what's going on with our jobs and what's happening, like family is the most important. And the nice thing is that just all of the people that are around us in our jobs understand that. So it's like it's easy to kind of if we have to take a step away to be with our families, it's great. But then it's nice that we're both in this industry, that we both understand each other and what we're doing. And also, we can trade off really easily
yeah.
be to support where it needs to be support in the family, things like that.
Man, that's awesome. It helps to have a
Yeah,
partner who can relate in some aspect creatively because I couldn't imagine if being involved in a relationship where one is extremely creative and the other one is not, and there's like a constant clash of
yeah,
this is how my brain operates, but this person on the opposite side maybe not so much. But some people make it work. But speaking of which, I see you have Mr. King Koopa Bowser on the cup.
yeah.
While we're on the topic of creativity, how did you even get involved in the space of this? Excuse me, in this creative space.
It has been since I was a child. My father, when I was very, very young, probably 6, 7 years old, pulled out the old family, camcorder, when you're using VHS tapes. And he
Yeah.
was like, Tyler, I want to show you this really cool trick. Like the simplest of in-camera tricks. And he's like, okay, sit in front of the wall and I'm going to push record. And then he pauses it and he's like, okay, now walk away. And he put a teddy bear there and then he pushes record and then you play it back. And what happens? I'm sitting there and boom, instantly I'm now a teddy bear. And it blew my mind.
Wow.
And that was when I was like, 6, 7, 8 years old. I don't remember exactly, but around then. And I thought, oh my goodness, like everything you see, and then it just clicked, like everything you see on TV is made, even though you kind of know that, like, but then it really like, oh, someone is making everything you see. And then from that point on, and then that's all I've ever pursued since I was a child. I mean, in high school, there was like two media classes, and then
Yeah.
I went to an undergrad school and I went to grad school. And so literally my entire life has been pursuing the creative field. And even when I like switched over to kind of producing the logistics and I really got into that and the business side of it, but it's because I love like the business side of the creative. And
Hmm.
so, so it makes me like a passionate a producer and logistics oriented. Like I was a production manager on feature films, on indie films. And a lot of the directors always love that I could come in with solutions, especially on like these indie budget films, come in with
Hmm.
solutions that are very creative oriented, as opposed to like, we don't have the money, I don't know what we're going to do, and it's like, well, we don't have the money for what you're trying to do, but what if we attempt to do it kind of like this way or this way? And so, it's always been creative from the beginning.
Man. You know, this is what I'm loving. What you're talking about is the start of it. You see, some people don't necessarily really understand like the importance of discovering it during your childhood. You can discover it at a much later point in your life, and that's perfectly okay. But many times, I won't say most, but many times, what you're truly passionate about, or what you're gifted at, or what you want to do, is discovered in childhood. And sometimes the parents may redirect their child depending on what that idea is. For creatives, it can be tricky because it's not a linear approach. It's such a an
Yeah.
erratic business that you don't necessarily know, hey, should I do this or should I not? You know, for you, and you have a family, so there's a lot of risk involved with anything, but especially when in the entertainment business. So for you, what has been like that dominant factor that said, I'm doing this and it is nothing else that matters when it comes to what I want to pursue professionally?
You know what? I think it's because you're almost like foolish enough to pursue it, and then I've been doing it for so long, and
Yeah.
then you get to a point like, well, I don't know anything else, and it's almost like I would have to start over and learn something completely new. And
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, I mean, the heart actually, I mean, many people who work in the film industry know that you gain so many skill sets, but it's hard to like if you leave it and go to another career, and many people know this and they've done it, and you're like you have to write down on your resume like what you did. It's like I worked on a movie, and people are like, yeah, but I mean that just seems like a joke. It's like that's so easy that you don't
Hmm.
realize that there's so much logistics and thinking and problem solving and teamwork and all these great things that you can
Hmm.
bring to a normal classic organization. Um, so so anybody that's listening that doesn't understand the film industry, filmmakers that are leaving the industry and I'm looking for other jobs, they are probably some of the best people to hire because they know how to work with teams and groups and things like that, and
Hmm.
think on their feet and troubleshoot. But I didn't really know any other. I didn't want to pursue anything else, and then I
Yeah.
didn't. And then once you kind of get to a point, you're like, well, I mean, all this is all I know. So I mean, I
Definitely.
have to make it work. Now, because of that too, I mean, I started out like many do, and I wanted to be a director. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a director.
Hmm.
And then my wife and I met, and I moved to a different country. I lived in India for a while, and then so I kind of had to change what I was going to do there. And then we moved back to New York and lived there for a while, and so I was kind of pursuing different things there, and then moved to Sweden. So it kind of kept shifting around. And so the benefit though was that I was able to, one of the great things about this industry too is that you build a lot of networks and connections. So I was able to navigate that
Hmm.
into other things. So, I mean, I went from wanting just to pursue directing, and then I started working in casting for reality TV. And then I learned how to package reality TV shows and got a job doing that. And then
Hmm.
I did, then I started learning how to do editing, and
Yeah.
then I did a little bit of that, and then I was working with some live events as a videographer, and then I went back into kind of producing again, and then I was working commercials and documentary, and then when I moved to Sweden, I kind of really set my foot back into films, and I worked as a production manager on a handful of that sort of $2 to $6 million range indie budget films, and I did that for a while, and then I worked in the film financing company. So, it wasn't just that one very linear path. And I think a lot of people probably think that, especially when you're starting out, you're like, I'm going to be a filmmaker. And it's like, that's that path.
Hmm.
And many people do it, but, and many people have to do many different things. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Sean Baker, who just won, Best Director for Nora, last year talked about having to, be a videographer for weddings and things like that while pursuing his, indie film career not that long ago.
Hmm.
So it's not as if, you do whatever you can. And so that's what I always thought. I was like, okay, if I'm not making a movie or I'm not making something, I want to at least be in the industry in some capacity. And the benefit from that is that I made a lot of connections and I learned a whole lot of different knowledge along the way. That had I stayed in this linear path, there's probably a lot of people I wouldn't meet, and also all this sort of outside knowledge that I'm bringing together on this next stage of my sort of career path journey.
You know, what I really enjoy about the entertainment industry versus other industries, like, right? Because um, I'm certainly not in the like same category, like I said, such as yourself. But just being involved in this capacity, just knowing that relationships is really what is, I won't say most helpful, but it is quite helpful. To have just a multitude of relationships throughout the business and meeting people through networking and being able to have these connections, I find it to be immensely helpful. If at anything else, the fact that you have so many connections, quite literally throughout the world. You can go here, you can go there, and you can always almost assure yourself that you might be able to like, connect with somebody. But one thing I wanted to ask, right? Because you had mentioned you were undergraduate and also grad school with when it for this business. Was that necessarily necessary to do for you in order to do this, or was it something that you felt that, let's say, how can I reword this? If you didn't go to school, right? You didn't go to school for film and the film business. Would you still find a lot of success?
That's a really good question and a tricky one. I grew up in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, which is a pretty decent sized city. It's like 1 million people, so it's not that small. But it's not. I mean, there was no hub of film, right?
Hmm.
So I went to a little college called Northern Kentucky University,
Hmm.
and when I was completing my studies there, I had a fantastic professor that will sort of stay with me forever. His name was Chris Strobel, and he encouraged me to go to film school actually, and I hadn't thought about it. But and around that time too, I always kind of get that question from my mother. My father has always been like the creative one. My mother's been very like analytical, logistical one.
Yep.
And I would always get the question from my mother, like, "Well, what are you gonna do?
Hmm.
How are you gonna make money?" And like, I didn't really know, exactly. But I was like, well, I can just delay it and go into debt and go to
Yeah.
film school. So I decided to go to film school because of a professor who really encouraged me to. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Like I loved my education, and I love what I got out of it, even the enormous debt I got that I
Yeah.
collected from it. It was a very, very good school. It was Savannah College of Art and Design, which is one of the best in the country, if not the world. And I mean, one of my producing professors was Andrew Meyer, who produced The Breakfast Club and the
Hmm.
16 Candles and those kinds of things. So to have this like amazing knowledge and access to equipment was great, but also the people that are there also has like passionate and adamant about learning filmmaking. So I would say more than anything else that the knowledge and access to as access to sort of equipment and all that is really, really great because you can't, it's really difficult to get that kind of level of access on your
Hmm.
own. You can join clubs and groups and organizations and you can kind of get close to it, but to get that level of access is really difficult. But also the network I have. I mean, I have some of the people that I went to college grad school with, are vice presidents at huge organizations now and at studios and things like that. So I have this direct access to some amazing people.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean you can't do it? Heck yeah, you can do it. I mean, I would just say find a hub. I mean, now, I mean, Louisville, Kentucky, I mean, Kentucky has this great tax credit scheme. And I mean, tons of projects are being made there. So you could, I mean, someone who's now, and if by chance listen to this and they're in high school, it's like you could just stick around there and you could get, be a PA on sets and films and go and work your way up into indie film career right there in Kentucky, which,
Hmm.
20 plus years ago, I couldn't have done. So I would say that for many people, you don't have to go to film school. And I would say don't do it unless you can really, really think you can afford it or deal with the debt afterwards. But I would suggest though finding one of the top 10 hubs in the US or wherever you live, whatever country you live in, and move there
Mhm.
and get close to the industry there because most of the country doesn't have any kind of industry. And not that you can't make it, but it's all about people. Like
Yep.
like we talk about connections. I mean, I think there are two currencies to get a movie made. The number one currency is money, and the second currency is people. And
Mhm.
it's collecting people and collecting connections. So if you can find yourself in a pretty decent hub of the entertainment industry, you're much more likely to find those people and kind of get going. I mean, you can stay where you live and kind of make some short films and things like that. Kind of just get your feet wet and
Mhm.
kind of figure out your tastes and stuff like that. But I would suggest trying to find a good hub to go to and grow from there.
It's all about the location sometimes too. Like I couldn't help but like think when you were speaking about going to these locations. And to me, I believe that to be such a prominent factor in just not finding, quote unquote, finding success, but at least having a much better chance at obtaining it. When I lived in Georgia, right, I lived in a small city called Noonan, Georgia, and I moved to Peachtree City, Georgia, and it wasn't until I joined the military and I got moved out to California, and I was about an hour from Los Angeles that I really realized this is what really, like, it's not specifically just like LA, but me being in that area, I realized immediately how you want to really go where your crowd of people are located. It helps with keeping the ideas flowing. It helps with continuing to build stronger relationships and people, and you're just closer to the action. If you're in an area where you're not close to it, but you want to do it, it's hard to do it. I mean, I know now you can pull out a phone, record it, and send it, and you can do much more. Now it's more accessibility in this current day versus what it was in like the '90s and the early 2000s. But you found much of your success early on, and you've continued to do it. Is there a difference, like in your opinion, when it comes to recording shorts or recording films in general? Because now people have like iPhone 15s, 16s, and pretty soon 18s, 20s, and the resolution in it can go up to 4K. In comparison to what you all use on a film set, right? Those high quality, high end cameras versus like an iPhone. Somebody's saying, why should I purchase a camera that costs thousands of dollars when I can just record it off of this phone, right? What's your response to that?
I say you're 100% right. I would say don't purchase a camera. I mean, no one in the high level of filmmaking is buying these cameras. They're being rented out. So start with whatever you can film on your phone. It doesn't matter. So many. I mean, of course, so many filmmakers started with shooting on just digital tape. So it doesn't really make a difference. So you can definitely just start with whatever you have access to. That's the most important. And then as you rise up in your career and you make new connections and you grow and you have budgets, all that amazing equipment is just being rented anyway. Nobody's
Mm.
buying those things. And
That's
I just want to also kind of touch back something you were saying, and it made me think. But like you said, you can, especially with an iPhone, you can make films anywhere. But a really important thing is like, yes, I mean, that is a process. I mean, the technology is a big part of making a film. But, there's so much, but that's the very sort of technical side of it. And this is why it's nice to live in a hub where you can kind of connect with other people because you're also going to have a lot of doubt and worry and questions. And when you can connect with people and work with them, they can encourage you, they can support you, you support each other, you get their opinions, that you give your opinions, and you kind of really come together as this kind of collaboration and fantastic little organization. And if you're in a small little place and there's not a lot of other creatives or other filmmakers, yeah, granted, of course, you can film, shoot, edit everything from a phone and your laptop, and that's okay to start with. But after a while, you're going to want to be with other like-minded people,
right.
and if you're not at a place where those people are around, I would consider finding a nice hub. Maybe that's not that far away or not that expensive to move to, and that's how you really grow. By finding great collaborators.
Yeah. You know, I am just like what I'm enjoying about this conversation is because it's making me think a lot, and it's making me think about like where I came from and how I grew up and the thoughts that I had and like where I am right now. And I remember like distinctly remember when I was younger, wanting to be in a position to not specifically like do interviews or do podcasts, but just be around other creatives because I always connected with that legit since I was. I don't. Well, I know it's like saying since I was a kid. It's probably cliche, but I think I was legitimately like 6 years old, like 5 or 6, if memory serves it correctly. And for what my parents would tell me, that I was just always a creative person. Always like my siblings and I would always take like stuffed animals and start making them talk and reenact scenes, or I would create these little skits, or well, I would try to reenact what I would see on Dragon Ball or something like that. But I was always like fascinated with that, with the world as a creator. And then you get hit with people from reality, and it can almost deter just deter you all around. You might lose motivation, you might lose hope, you might even lose the vision. And being able to, it comes back. One thing I've learned about whatever it's meant to be will be, is that you can run away from it. You can throw that thing in the ocean, get on a speedboat, and then jet to Miami. But eventually, it'll somehow, some way, it'll come back. And what is meant for you, it'll just continuously return. And unless you grab a hold of it, it's probably going to keep showing itself until the end of time. But I wanted to ask another question, man. That was great advice, by the way, because I'm sure people are going to want to look at it and think, do I want to buy these cameras? Or should I just use my iPhone? So thank you for sharing that. But speaking of films, what are some of your work? And I'm sure you're proud of most, if not all, of your work. But what are some of more of the notable things that you've worked on, that people can go and check out right now?
Well, the indie films are all European films. So, I mean, and they could, I don't even know where they're streaming, but if you're in the US, but one is called, in the English version, is called Cairo Conspiracy. Really enjoyed that a lot. I worked as a production manager. The film called, and that was a play. I was very, very fortunate. I got to see, I got a ticket to see that. And
Hmm.
it was in main competition in Cannes 3 years ago. So to kind of get to sit in
Nice.
the main cinema and watch that was fantastic. And then two other films were called Man and Dog, and another one was called Pleasure, which did very well at Sundance and kind of went around the circuit in 20. When was that released? 2020, I believe.
Mhm.
So those are the I would say I would say Pleasure. I know for sure Pleasure and
Mhm.
um, Cairo Conspiracy are probably ones that people can access. The other ones are smaller, and I don't know if they'll be able to find access to them. But yeah, so those, and then I produced a short documentary that I really enjoyed. That was called Ovation for Oscar. And actually, some of it's funny. And some of them are very small, and some are
Yeah.
much bigger. But my favorite thing I've always done is music videos. I love music videos, and
Mhm.
if I could have made and I had thought about it, I was actually uh, could have made a career out of music videos, I probably would have. When I was really pursuing them in 2011, I had
Mhm.
someone who wanted to manage me as a music video director. And I said yes. And then it was like just maybe a month later, my wife got offered a job at DreamWorks Animation, but in
Yeah.
India. So we're like, okay, we got to take that. We can't say
Yeah.
no to that. So that kind of that stopped that. And then I almost got back into it when I was back in New York,
Hmm.
but then I didn't, and I was pursuing other things. But music videos is I would say it's one of my favorite things. I love music videos so much. I think it's a great medium. It's a lot of fun. You don't get paid a lot of money, and the budgets aren't that high. It depends. I made some where the budgets were like 5,000, and I produced some that the budget's like $90,000. And
Yeah.
then obviously there's one that get even higher and higher than that, of course, depending on the artist.
For sure.
But music videos are a lot of fun. I love it. I think it's uh, a great expression, a great way to express yourself
Yeah.
if you want. And as a producer, it's a lot of fun because it's so hard. It's exhausting because it's not like you have smaller budgets, you have very small crews, and there's usually a whole lot that needs to be accomplished in a very short period of time. And one of the videos I produced, it was like an 18-hour filming day.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. So yeah.
Those hours, those long hours, and some people look back and they'll look at movies and they'll see it and they think that, oh, that seems pretty simple. Like, no, it's not. And
No, yeah.
No, it's not. There's so much complexity to it, and
Yeah.
it's like you haven't even scratched the surface yet when we're talking even in post production, But one other thing too that I was what I see this conversation, right? What I love about the organic flow of the conversation is the idea that all of these different ideas come and you just want to ask away and then try to get and build these answers off of those questions. But one of the things I wanted to ask was in regards to when you were in New York, right? New York, has that phrase of you're the city that never sleeps. But I think there's a lot of truth. I've been to New York, but it was many years ago. But with that being said, while you were out there, right? We talk about going where the action is. Was there a lot more that you gained in being in New York than it was when you were in Kentucky or where you are currently?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
was
I mean,
that?
again, it's all about proximity. It's about proximity to people. I mean, there's so many things going on there. And if you have the great thing is even if you have a small little network, that small little network will grow you to. I mean, I met so many people when I lived in New York because I had a couple of people that were living there, um, and then introduced me to other people. So I got to have a lot of meetings and things like that. So that's the thing. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, the bigger the hub, especially if you don't know anyone, then it's going to be tricky. But the bigger the hub, if you know someone there, you will always introduce you to somebody else, and that's kind of just how that grows and builds.
Yeah,
So being in any kind of big hub of the industry it is very significant and can be, and I would say to utilize it the best you can.
hmm
And the best thing to do is if you don't even know what kind of work you want to do or how you're going to get work, just meet people and don't just meet people to collect them. Like just
yeah,
I'm gonna have a meeting. Okay, I'm having a meeting with somebody else, and then somebody else, and then it's like you've met 50 people in a month, but you're not following up with anybody, and you're not building any kind of depth. I mean, connections are also. It's not just about the number of people and the names you have. It's about those connections that you can call on them 6 months later and be like, hey. By the way, now I finally actually need something. We've been talking off and on for so long, but can you help me with this or that? Or that person may say, "Hey, by the way, I have something that I know you've been looking for
hmm
XYZ, a job or a connection or something else even more, and I have that for you." So that went from hub to connections, but I would say, we talked about if connections are currency. I mean, it's the value of that currency is how deep those connections are. So
for sure.
really foster connect with people. And and now, I mean, I live on a little island in Sweden now, and so I'm as far as away from everything as you can get. But I mean, I
Yeah,
have so many connections, and I can call on anybody. So anybody. I mean, I can call on so many people, and even now, I mean, and I'm building new, very deep connections just from my computer and LinkedIn and these, and I
hmm
had plenty of video calls so, you don't have to be living in the hub, but, it's a nice start and it'll connect you to other
for
people.
sure.
And then you can use, digitally try to build connections as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly how we were connected. I was connected with Diane, who then connected me with you, and I think that's also was nice about creatives now is that there's so much accessibility to it and so many different platforms. Once you get a grasp of that platform and learn how to utilize it, it can work to your advantage, and you can build an almost a social circle of people. Granted, I think the biggest difference between now versus like in like the 90s and 2000s is that you're not having a real life person to person shake your hand hug whatever type of encounters is done virtually, which I think is better than nothing. It's
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, you know
But
what?
I mean, the least the nice thing, I mean, it is better than nothing for sure. But at least the nice thing is that you can have, I mean, I'm having meetings now where it's like another producer in Stockholm and then a producer in Atlanta and the directors in New York. And then the head of distribution is out in California and we're all on the call together.
Yeah,
And so and at least we're kind of being able to see each other. So I mean that is very beneficial to you can I mean it's really becomes international too.
for sure.
So to really connect with people.
No, for sure, and I love that, and I love too how it saves a lot of time as well. But I definitely do miss many times being able to like be in person
Yes.
and meeting them. But so Sweden, right? I know
Yes,
one.
correct.
Well, one. Let me shout out your wife, who has, you and your wife, who have been so supportive. My wife has been so supportive of me and vice versa. But I think there is something to be said when you have not even just a wife, but a spouse in general who is equally as supportive of your career as you are of theirs. And you mentioning that, hey, had a good deal. We had to go to India, for her getting that DreamWorks job, and then you going and figuring it out how you're going to do things. But you all have a family together, right? And children. What's the likelihood, right? I don't know. How old is your oldest child?
Oldest son is 11, so 11, 8, and 2.
Oh, okay. So the 11 and the 8-year-old, probably even the 2-year-old to a little bit might be showing some little sparks here and there of creativity. But for your 11 and your 8-year-old, have either of them shown or like an interest in this business that you and your wife are doing?
Yeah, definitely. Our oldest, he very much the cam. He loves the camera and both trying to doing things behind it and in front of it.
Hmm.
So he's been really wanting to pick up the camera a lot and doing a lot with the camera. And our 8-year-old, sort of pseudo, but not the same. But like my wife when she was a child, he'll just sit and draw for hours. And and now he can draw us way better than me. I'm a terrible I'm a terrible artist. Uh, my creative is in the storytelling side. But so he'll just yeah. So they are already picking up the different things that are different passions.
That's awesome, man. And I'm asking because I have children as well, and my oldest one, he has shown since I want to say since he was 1 or 2, just an interest in illustration. And my sister, she's an artist as well, but you know it unless you're like in the business and you know how to navigate it, it can be really tricky. Especially now, it's I think the business has always been competitive, but I think especially now with the inclusion of streaming services, so it's not just about getting your movie into movie theaters, but the streaming services that it makes it equally, if not more difficult to get your work in there. And so for me, I look at it from the perspective, and maybe you think the same, especially considering your resume, right? That I'm getting in there one way or another versus I think it's no, I don't know if I should do that. Like, what's your advice, right,
Yeah.
to filmmakers out there, especially the younger filmmakers out there who see the amount of like streaming services and just the competition out there, and they're like discouraged and like I don't even know if I can get into it because it's too much. Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, true. I mean, it's no, I would never want to say like, no, just do it. It's easy. I mean, it's not easy. It's incredibly hard. I mean, I struggle and, and I have a producing partner who has an amazing resume and we have these projects that we try to help get financed and they have this great actors attached and we struggle to get those projects over the finish line. And so, I mean, it's a struggle even for people who actually, have access.
Hmm.
But it's just, I mean, it's just perseverance. And I would say,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say look at the big streaming services. I mean, start small. Like at least you have access. You can do YouTube and use that as your way to share your work. And maybe you're thinking, okay, but I need to make some money. Because I think there's this idea too. It's like, oh, I just make a film, and then people will hire me to be a director, and I'm like all kinds of money. And that's not the case. I mean, it's something like what is it like 160? There's 160,000 SAG members, and only like 20,000 of them make a living. Make an actual living like salary. So you're talking about 140,000 actual SAG actors who don't even make a living wage. So it's incredibly difficult, but there are different routes and paths and just create, make connections. If you can find different ways to do a little event at your local cinema to
Hmm.
stream your film, or maybe you can get like if you're in a pretty decent sized city, can you get 7, 8 filmmakers together and say, hey, let's try to all make short films at the same time and then stream them as a collective, and we can just have people buy tickets to come see this collective of short films, and just as a way to just make a little bit of income. And you can try to do make a little workshop. If you just graduated from college, you're 22 years old, well, and you've made a few short films, I bet you there's some 16-year-olds and their parents would be willing to pay $50, and you can put together a workshop for 15 kids, so they can learn what you just learned from 4 years of college and things like that. So but just create and share and build those networks. There's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations, and there's no like direct path. I mean, some people make a short film and they make a feature and then they get recognized and boom, their career takes off. And some people make many feature films and they'll never really get seen by that many people. But then they figure out, okay, how can I make a living out of this though? How can I just how can I raise enough money to make this film and get that out there and then do the next one and the next one? And, like they talked about Sean Baker at the beginning, who after many years, after 20 plus years going at it, he won the best director. But I mean, all he's ever done is very low budget indie films.
Yeah.
And then you take whatever jobs you can in between, because that's he said. He's like, I just want to be an indie filmmaker. And his budgets range from $100,000 to $6 million over the course of, what is it, like 8 films or something.
Hmm.
And you just take whatever work and jobs you can do in between, and you edit other people's projects, or you do you find a company that needs some kind of film or a wedding videographer, and you just make it in between. But I wouldn't, there's always going to be competition, and it's going to keep growing. But there's always going to be an appetite for new content and connecting with an audience and building an audience, especially now with social media. I mean, if you are sharing on YouTube, but you're also sharing about the process and talking about that process, you're going to start building a really like sort of devout audience, because because not only do they want to see your film, but they want to see your film because you made it, because they like you and they're following you on YouTube and they're following you on Instagram, and so they want to watch your film and not just a film. I'm not saying there's going to be 100,000 of those people, but if there's even a few hundred, that gets you. That's it. It's just a process. It's an ever evolving process, and you learn a lot along the way. And take advice from as many people as you can, because some advice is going to help you and some isn't. It all depends. Like, no one's scenario is the same. It's like a snowflake or DNA.
Yeah.
Everyone is different. Everything's different, and there's no right way in. It's not just like get your degree and then you get hired at film company to make movie.
Hmm. No, for
And
sure.
everyone has a different path. So
No, no, that's great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I I also think too that just many people are afraid. Just regardless of anything else, it's just like a legitimate fear of doing it. I think once you just do it, I love that. Just do it. Just take what you can and just do it. Just do it. And I think eventually in that pursuit of just doing it, more opportunities will continue to grow. So one door opens, another one opens, and then it's just you're in this endless hallway of doors that you're opening, and if one closes, another one opens immediately afterwards. And you just got to keep going and have a persistence, a grit, and determination to just not give up. And I believe there will be many moments in general where there is this thought of, I don't know if I should do this anymore, or am I good enough, or will they accept my work, or whatever the case is. You're like in here, these internal thoughts eventually come to the light, and you catch yourself not knowing what to do. And that's where I think relationships really help you be able to come out of it. Some people with their spouse, some with their friends, or some others within the business that they're in. But to that, I think that's really why it's important to have like-minded people in the surrounding you. Because if you get down and you have somebody who's like a realist, and your group of people around you are all realists, not to say that creative people aren't realists, but we as creatives, we think creatively first, and then reality, oh, okay, yeah, I get to that thought later. Um, but if you're around a bunch of people who are just, look at the logistics of things, they're analytical and they're realists, and you have these ambitions, it can really dissolve quite quickly,
yeah,
and you might not do it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
go ahead, bro.
100%. Yeah. No, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of fear and self-doubt, and and sadly too, I mean, there's a lot of wonderful people in this industry, but there's a lot of people who see it as competition, which they shouldn't, but they do, and so, and then that kind of creeps in sometimes, and so you can feel defeated, or someone makes you feel bad, or things like that, so not only do you have to deal with your own internal thoughts, but there's, like anyone, like anywhere in the world, there's always, there'll be external negativity, and that's going to happen. Yeah, and like you said, it's really about the people you connect with and that will support you and encourage you and help you through that. Because everyone goes through self doubt, everyone goes through worry, Everyone is, they finally get the chance to make something and they're making it. But right before they make it, they're afraid of how it's going to be. And then in the process of it, you're just so consumed that you don't really think about it and you just get through it. And then it gets over and you think, oh my gosh, I'll probably never make anything again. And it's just like you're kind of going through the whole cycle again and you never know what's gonna happen. And you're gonna always fear. And there's always sort of pivoting and change. And every time I've pivoted along the way, I always thought, oh, what am I doing? I should have just stuck with one thing. Like this is gonna fail. I should have just done
Hmm.
this and that's it. And at least if I did that for 5 years straight, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna work. And then I would pivot to something else. And it's like you're excited when you first kind of move directions, and then you start having a ton of self doubt, and you're just like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? What am I thinking? I got to go back to this other thing, and then but then you'll be unhappy, and just pursue what you want to pursue. You'll be so happy if you do it. Even if it's a struggle, even if it's really really hard. Um, you know, but at least you're doing the thing you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And fighting through that fear and doubt is part of that process. So
Hmm.
not only creating the thing, but just overcoming the obstacles are as equally as rewarding as the thing that you create.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is perfect right there. Just do what makes you happy. At the end of it all, do what makes you happy. Um, if you don't know what your passion is, but you focus on what you're happy about, then I think that's just as good. Eventually, what your passion is may be discovered in the focus of happiness. But
Yeah,
hey,
I
Tyler,
mean, if
hey
I
man,
could, oh, if actually, if I just like kind of
go
just
ahead.
tap into
Yeah,
that
go
real
ahead.
quick there, actually, but I mean, like I mean, I've been sort of producing production management stuff for the past 19 years, and I haven't really done anything creative. I mean, I would write my own screenplays just for the practice of doing it and things like that. But then, as I started just in the last year and a half, I've been sharing a lot on LinkedIn and kind of building that content creator side of things. And in that process, I've met a lot of people and a lot of creatives, and I thought, my gosh, I miss being creative, and I hadn't really thought about it too much. So now it's like, okay, now I'm gonna go like I'm setting a huge chunk of time in my week now, from now until for when that till eternity, But I mean,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna focus on the creative things. I'm starting to write a novella based off of a short screenplay. I want to get back into directing things again. It's not that I know that's not going to happen like this. It could be another year and a half before I do anything. But I want to get back into being creative, but not just creative internally when I've been like kind of doing it on my desk and just writing something. But like I want to create and share and really get my creative out there. And and so to that, like, you don't always know what you're going to do. I had no plans and intentions of doing that even 6 7 months ago.
Hmm.
Well, maybe that's kind of when it started, but a year ago, I wasn't like, I really want to focus on being a creative again. I had no intentions of doing that, but it just kind of came naturally again. So, like, be open to sort of, I don't know, accepting I don't know, the forces of art and creativity in the world and kind of letting it sort of guide you.
Hmm.
What with that, it's like you don't have to know what you're going to do. You don't have to know what 5 years are like. Just know what 5 days are like and 5 months are like, and work towards that. And then work for the next 5 months. And then what's going to happen though is new things will open up, new ideas will come, new people will come along, and that'll change the direction. But I think it's very easy to kind of get stuck in like, but what's 5 years going to be like, and how do I get there, and how do I do it? And it's like, don't worry about that. I mean, if you have a dream, I want to make a movie in 5 years, great, but don't like get set mentally because sometimes you can get so roadblocked because
Hmm.
you're like, this is what I want to do and I don't know how to do it, or I don't know what I want to do. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just worry about what you want to do at this moment and then let the other stuff unfold on its own.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Focus on live pretty much like live in the present. Focus on what makes you happy, and then everything else will come to fruition. And I think you also need to not. Truthfully, I think it is a matter of like choose your friends wisely. And really be aware of the decisions that you're making and who you're sharing the news with. You don't want to share big ideas to small-minded people that have influence over you. And that's like not an insult to anybody. It's really more so of if you have if people in your life that have influence over you tend to be pessimistic and you are quite the contrary, you might want to like reconsider sharing those news with someone else and kind of just build a relationship. Social media right now is a great place to find many people. I've been finding like the quantity of people who I've connected with, including you, Tyler, through social media has been spectacular. If for nothing else, just being able to like read posts and see it or see some videos and just continue to have that flow of inspiration flowing even on days where I'm just not feeling like myself. And so it's been wonderful, man. I gotta get ready to let you go, but any closing remarks before I let you out?
No, I don't think there's anything. It was wonderful. It was a great chat. I'm so happy that you had me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on, Tyler. I'm really happy that your family, they're all doing well and you continue to put out some great work. Hey, well, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune into today's episode. He was amazing, man. And Diane, thank you so much for making this connection with him. You're wonderful, Tyler. Thank you so much, my man.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Hey, you all take care, and I'll catch you next time.